You know that feeling when your entire world just stops? When your hands go cold and your heart drops so fast you swear it's going to crack right through the floor. That's exactly what happened to me on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was standing in my closet holding up two dresses, trying to decide which one would make me look like the perfect daughter-in-law at my mother-in-law's mansion inauguration party. A party, by the way, that I had literally paid for every single brick, every chandelier, every marble tile in that massive entryway. My money, and then my phone buzzed. One text from my husband, Michael. Just 12 words that would change absolutely everything. You don't need to come. My mother doesn't want you here. I read it once, then twice, then a third time, because surely I must be losing my mind. My mother doesn't want you here. The same mother-in-law whose entire dream home was sitting on a foundation built with my inheritance. The same woman I had handed a check for over $2 million to just 8 months ago. That mother didn't want me there. I sat down on the edge of my bed, still holding that stupid burgundy dress in my hands, and I just stared at the wall. And let me tell you something right now. What I did in the next hour, what I discovered about my husband, my mother-in-law, and the so-called perfect life I thought I was living. You're going to want to stay until the very end of this story, because the way this whole thing turned around, I still get chills thinking about it. But first, let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Emma Richardson. Well, Emma Richardson Clark after I married Michael Clark 7 years ago. I grew up in a small town outside of Boston. Nothing fancy, just your typical working class neighborhood where everybody knew everybody's. Business and Sunday dinners were sacred. My dad was a mechanic. My mom was a nurse who worked double shifts just to make sure my brother Liam and I had everything we needed. We weren't rich, not even close, but we were happy. We had love, and honestly, that was enough for me. I never cared about fancy things, never dreamed about mansions or designer bags or any of that stuff. I just wanted a good life, a family of my own, someone who loved me the way my dad loved my mom, with that quiet, steady, unshakable kind of devotion. And then I met Michael. I was 24, fresh out of nursing school, working my first job at Massachusetts General Hospital. He came in one night with a broken wrist from a basketball game gone wrong, and I swear to you, the moment I saw him sitting there in that waiting room, holding his arm and trying to act all tough about it, something just clicked. He was handsome, sure, dark hair, these deep brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and this laugh that could fill up an entire room. But it wasn't just that, it was the way he talked to me, like I was the only person in the world worth listening to, like everything I said mattered. By the time I finished wrapping his wrist, he had already asked me out for coffee. I said yes before I could even think about it, and just like that, my whole life changed. We dated for 2 years, got engaged on a snowy night in Boston Common, right by the big Christmas tree. He got down on one knee, and I cried so hard I could barely see the ring. It was perfect. He was perfect, or so I thought, the first time I met Michael's mother. Patricia Clark was about 3 months into our relationship. Michael had been nervous about it, which I thought was kind of cute. She's just a lot, he had said, running his hand through his hair as we drove to her apartment in the nice part of town. She has really high standards. But don't worry, she's gonna love you. Spoiler alert? She did not love me. From the moment I walked through her door, Patricia looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her designer shoe. She didn't say anything mean. Not at first. She was too classy for that. Instead, it was all these tiny little jabs disguised as compliments. Oh, a nurse. How noble. You must meet so many interesting people. Emma. What a simple name. Very traditional. Michael, sweetie, you didn't tell me she was so petite. Every word felt like a paper cut. Small, sharp, and impossible to point out without looking crazy. But told myself it was fine. She was just protective of her son. She would warm up to me eventually. I mean, mothers always want what's best for their children, right? She just needed time to see how much I loved Michael, how wrong I was. 7 years. 7 years. I spent trying to win that woman over. 7 years of biting my tongue at family dinners. 7 years of pretending not to notice. When she would forget to set a place for me at the table, 7 years of being told I wasn't good enough, pretty enough, successful enough for her precious son. And through all of it, Michael never once stood up for me. Not once. "That's just how she is," he would say, shrugging it off like it was nothing. "She doesn't mean anything by it. You're being too sensitive, Emma. It's too sensitive." Those two words became the soundtrack of my marriage. Every time Patricia made a snide comment about my cooking, too sensitive every time she conveniently forgot to invite me to family events. Too sensitive. Every time she told Michael right in front of me that he could have done so much better. Too sensitive. I started to believe it, too. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe was being dramatic. Maybe this was just what marriage was supposed to be like. You sacrifice. You compromise. You swallow your pride and keep smiling. And I was really, really good at smiling. Then, about 2 years ago, everything changed. My grandmother passed away. Grandma Rose, she was my mom's mother. This tiny little firecracker of a woman who had lived through more hardships than anyone I'd ever known and still managed to find joy in every single day. I adored her, and when she died, it felt like a piece of my heart got buried right alongside her. What I didn't know was that Grandma Rose had been sitting on a small fortune. Her late husband, my grandfather, had made some incredibly smart investments back in the day. Stocks, real estate, things I never even knew about. And when the lawyers read her will, she had left everything to me, $2.4 million. I couldn't even process it at first. That kind of money just didn't exist in my world. It was like winning the lottery, except it came wrapped in grief and loss, and this overwhelming sense of responsibility. Grandma Rose had trusted me with her life savings. I couldn't let her down, so I did what any reasonable person would do. I paid off our mortgage. Set up college funds for the kids we were planning to have. Someday. Put a chunk into savings, and then Patricia Clark showed up at my door with tears in her eyes. I still remember that day so clearly. Michael wasn't home. He was at work, doing whatever it is that marketing executives do all day. And there was his mother standing on my porch, looking smaller and more fragile than I had ever seen her. "Emma," she had said, her voice trembling, "I need your help." I should have closed the door. I should have laughed in her face. After 7 years of being treated like dirt, I had every right to turn my back on that woman, but I didn't. Because underneath all that hurt, I still wanted her to like me. I still wanted to be part of the family. And maybe, just maybe, if I helped her now, things would finally change. So I invited her in, made her some tea, and listened as she told me. It's a whole sad story, apparently. Patricia had been living way beyond her means for years. Credit card debt, bad investments, a lifestyle she couldn't actually afford. And now she was about to lose everything. Her apartment was in foreclosure. Her car was being repossessed. She had nothing. "I've always dreamed of having a real home," she had said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "A place where the whole family could gather, where Michael could bring his children someday, a legacy to leave behind." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in 7 years, there was something like warmth in her eyes. "You're the only one who can help me, Emma. You're my only hope." And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. I talked to Michael about it that night, and to my surprise, he was completely on board. It means so much to her. "Babe," he had said, pulling me into his arms. "And think about it. A big family home where we can all be together. Our kids running around in a huge backyard. Holiday dinners with everyone around one table. Doesn't that sound amazing?" It did sound amazing. It sounded like everything I had ever wanted. A real family, a place to belong. So I wrote the check. $2 million for a beautiful property in the suburbs of Boston. A mansion. Really? 5 bedrooms. A pool. Gardens that look like something out of a magazine. I handed Patricia Clark the keys to her dream home. And for one brief, shining moment, I thought I had finally won. I thought she would finally accept me. The next 8 months were ... fine. Not great. Not terrible. Just fine. Patricia was polite to me now, which felt like a huge improvement. She even invited me to help pick out paint colors for the master bedroom. Me. Helping with her house. I actually started to believe that things were getting better, that my sacrifice had been worth it, that we were finally becoming a real family. And then came the day of the inauguration. Party. Patricia had planned this huge celebration to show off her new home. Caterers, decorations, a guest list that read like a who's who of Boston society. Everyone. Who was anyone was going to be there, and I was going to be right by Michael's side, finally being seen as part of the Clark family. Or so I thought. I had taken the whole week off work to prepare, bought a new dress, got my hair done, even splurged on a professional makeup session. I wanted to look perfect. I wanted Patricia to be proud to introduce me as her daughter-in-law. Michael had left early that morning to help his mother set up. He kissed me goodbye, told me he would text me when it was time to come over, and walked out the door like it was any other day. And then, 4 hours later, I got that text. You don't need to come. My mother doesn't want you here. I stared at those words until they blurred. My mother doesn't want you here. My mother doesn't want you here. The mother whose mansion was sitting on land I had bought and paid for. The mother who had cried on my couch and begged for my help. The mother who had taken my grandmother's inheritance and turned it into her personal palace. That mother didn't want me at her party. Something inside me snapped. Not in an angry way. Not in a crying way. In a cold, calculated, absolutely done way. I picked up my phone and typed out 2 words. Understood? Then I set the phone down, walked to my closet, and started getting ready. Because here's the thing about Emma Richardson. I might be too sensitive. I might be too nice. I might be the girl who lets people walk all over her just to keep the peace. But I am also my grandmother's granddaughter. And Grandma Rose didn't raise a quitter, she raised a fighter. 1 hour later, I pulled up to Patricia Clark's brand new mansion. The party was already in full swing. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Elegant. Music drifted through the perfectly landscaped gardens and through the massive front windows. I could see dozens of people in their finest clothes, champagne, glasses in hand, celebrating the home that my money had built. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Hair perfect. Makeup flawless. Dress absolutely stunning, and in my hand a manila envelope that was about to change everything. I stepped out of my car, smoothed down my dress, and walked straight toward those front doors. Because Patricia Clark and Michael, they had no idea what was coming. No idea at all. The front doors of that mansion were massive, custom made. Dark mahogany with these intricate iron handles that probably cost more than my first car. I stood there for just a second, taking it all in. The music flowing from inside, the laughter, the clinking of expensive glasses, filled with champagne that I had technically paid for. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. But my hands were steady, because I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. I pushed open those doors and stepped inside. And let me tell you something, that house was even more beautiful than I remembered. Crystal chandeliers, hanging from ceilings that seemed to stretch up forever. Marble floors so shiny you could see your reflection in them. Fresh flowers everywhere. These massive arrangements that must have cost a fortune. And people, so many people. Boston's finest, all dressed up in their designer gowns and tailored suits, sipping champagne and nibbling on fancy appetizers like they owned a place. Which, technically, none of them did. I did. Well, had paid for it anyway. The moment I walked in, heads started turning. Whispers started spreading. I could feel the eyes on me, curious and confused. Who was this woman walking in like she owned the place? I kept my chin up and my shoulders back, just like Grandma Rose always taught me. You walk into any room like you belong there, Emma, she used to say. Because you do. You always do. I belonged here more than anyone, and I was about to prove it. It didn't take long for me to spot Patricia. She was standing in the center of the grand living room, surrounded by a circle of admirers, wearing this gorgeous silver gown that made her look like some kind of aging movie star. She was laughing at something someone had said, throwing her head back dramatically, playing the perfect hostess. And right next to her, Michael, my husband, the man who had sent me that text just an hour ago, the man who had told me his mother didn't want me here. He was wearing the navy blue suit I had bought him for our anniversary last year, the one I had picked out specifically because I knew it would bring out his eyes. He looked handsome. He looked happy. He looked like a man who didn't have a care in the world. That was about to change. I started walking toward them, slow and steady. No rush. I wanted to savor this moment. People parted for me as I moved through the crowd. Maybe it was the look on my face. Maybe it was the energy radiating off me. But something made them step aside, creating a clear path straight to Patricia and Michael. Patricia saw me first. Her laugh died in her throat. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips, and her eyes went wide with something I had never seen in them before. Fear, pure, undiluted fear. Emma, she breathed, like she was seeing a ghost. The circle of admirers around her fell silent. Michael's head snapped toward me, and I watched the color drain from his face in real time. Emma, he said, his voice tight. What are you doing here? I told you, I know what you told me, I interrupted, keeping my voice calm and steady. You told me your mother doesn't want me here. Isn't that right, Patricia? All eyes were on us now. The entire room had gone quiet. Even the string quartet in the corner had stopped playing. Patricia straightened her spine and lifted her chin, trying to regain her composure. Emma, darling, she said, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness I knew so well. This really isn't the time or place. Perhaps we could discuss this later, in private. I don't think so, I said, taking another step closer. I think this is the perfect time and place. After all, this is your party, isn't it? In your beautiful new home? I gestured around at the magnificent room. These marble floors, these crystal chandeliers, that swimming pool out back. All yours, right? Patricia's eyes darted nervously to the crowd around us. Of course it's mine, she said through gritted teeth. This is my home. Funny, I said, reaching into my purse. 'Cause I have some documents here that say otherwise. I pulled out the manila envelope, the same envelope I had been clutching in my car. The same envelope that contained every single piece of paperwork related to this property. Patricia's face went pale. What is that? Michael demanded, stepping toward me. Emma, what are you doing? What I should have done a long time ago, I said, opening the envelope. You see, when I agreed to help your mother buy this house, I was young and naive and desperately wanted to be part of this family. So I just handed over the money without asking too many questions. I pulled out the first document. But after I got your little text today, Michael, something occurred to me. I never actually saw any of the closing documents. I just wrote the check and trusted that everything was handled properly. I held up the paper for everyone to see. So on my way here, I made a quick stop at my lawyer's office. And guess what he showed me? The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. This house, I continued, is not in Patricia Clark's name. It's not in Michael Clark's name either. It's in my name, Emma Richardson. Because when you use someone else's money to buy a property and that person signs all the checks, the deed automatically goes to the person who paid for it. Patricia's champagne glass slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the marble floor, sending crystal fragments and golden liquid everywhere. Nobody moved to clean it up. That's not possible, Patricia stammered. I signed papers. I was told you were told what you wanted to hear, I said, by lawyers who were actually working for me, not for you. My grandmother didn't raise a fool, Patricia. She taught me to protect myself. So before I ever wrote that check, I made sure that every single document had my name on it. I just never said anything because I trusted you. I trusted Michael. I thought we were family. I let that word hang in the air, family, the thing I had wanted so desperately for 7 long years, the thing they had dangled in front of me like a carrot. Always just out of reach. Emma, baby, listen. To me, Michael said, moving toward me with his hands outstretched. This is all just a misunderstanding. We can talk about this. We can work this out. A misunderstanding. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Okay. You texted me that your mother doesn't want me here? At a party in a house that I own? That's not a misunderstanding, Michael. That's a betrayal. I didn't mean it like that, he said desperately. Mom was just... She was nervous about the party and she didn't want any drama and drama. I cut him off. Do you mean like your mother spending the last 7 years treating me like garbage? Like you never once standing up for me when she insulted me, excluded me, made me feel like I was worth nothing. That kind of drama. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were exchanging glances, shocked by what they were witnessing. Patricia's carefully constructed image was crumbling right before their eyes. And you know what the really funny part is? I continued, turning back to Patricia. I actually fell for your whole sad story. The tears, the you're my only hope, the promises that things would be different. I gave you my grandmother's inheritance because I genuinely believed you were going to change. I thought that maybe, finally, you would accept me as part of this family. My voice cracked slightly on that last part. Because despite everything, it still hurt. It hurt to know that no matter what I did, I would never be good enough for these people. But I was wrong, I said, steadying myself. You never had any intention of accepting me. You just wanted my money. And once you had it, once this house was built and your dream was realized, you were going to throw me away like yesterday's trash? That's not true. Patricia protested, but her voice was weak, unconvincing. Isn't it? I challenged. Then why am I not welcome at this party? Why did you tell Michael to uninvite me to the celebration of a house that I paid for? She had no answer, because there was no answer. The truth was written all over her face. Emma, please. Michael tried again, reaching for my hand. Let's just go somewhere quiet and talk about this. We can figure this out together. We're married. We're a team. I pulled my hand away from him. Are we? I asked. Because teams don't send texts telling each other to stay away. Teams don't choose their mothers over their wives. Teams don't take someone's money and then treat them like they don't exist. Tears were burning in my eyes now, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of these people, not in front of her. You know what really hurts, Michael? I said quietly. It's not the money. Money can be earned back. It's not even the house. I could care less about marble floors and crystal chandeliers. What hurts is that I loved you. I really, truly loved you. I gave you everything I had, and it still wasn't enough. I was never going to be enough for you. Or for her. Michael's face crumbled. For the first time, I saw real emotion in his eyes, real regret, real shame. But it was too late for that now. So here's what's going to happen, I said, straightening my spine and addressing the room. This party is over. Everyone needs to leave. Now, you can't do that. Patricia screeched, her composure finally shattering completely. This is my home, my party. You can't just... Actually, I can, I said calmly, holding up the deed. Because legally, this is my home. My name is on every document. I own every brick, every tile, every blade of grass in that perfectly manicured lawn. And I am telling everyone to leave. I looked around at the stunned guests. I'm sorry to ruin your evening, but I'm sure you understand. Family drama and all that. Slowly, people started moving toward the door. Some shot sympathetic glances my way. Others just looked eager to escape. The awkwardness within 15 minutes. The grand living room that had been packed with Boston's elite was completely empty. Just me, Michael and Patricia, standing in the middle of all that expensive marble, surrounded by all those beautiful flowers, in a house that had been built on lies. Patricia was trembling with rage. "You ungrateful little witch," she hissed. "After everything I did for you, everything you did for me." I almost laughed. "What exactly did you do for me, Patricia? Besides insult me at every family dinner? Besides forgetting to invite me to holidays? Besides telling your son repeatedly that he could have done better than me?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "You know what? I'm done," I said, suddenly feeling exhausted. "I'm done trying to earn your approval. I'm done being the bigger person. I'm done pretending that any of this is okay." I looked at Michael, my husband, the man I had built my entire life around. "I'm done with you too," I said quietly. His eyes went wide. "Emma, no. You don't mean that? We can work through this. I'll do better, I swear. I'll stand up to my mom. It's too late, Michael." I cut him off. "It was too late the moment you sent that text. Maybe even before that. I've been fooling myself for years, thinking that if I just tried harder, loved you more, gave up more of myself, things would eventually get better. But they never did. And they never will." I slipped my wedding ring off my finger. It was a beautiful ring. Diamonds surrounded by smaller sapphires. Michael had proposed with it on that snowy night in Boston Common, and I had treasured it ever since. Now it just felt heavy. I set it down on the nearest table. "I want a divorce," I said, and I turned around and walked out of that mansion, through those massive mahogany doors, past the empty driveway where all those fancy cars used to be, into the cool evening air that smelled like fresh-cut grass and freedom. I made it all the way to my car before the tears finally came. Not sad tears, not angry. Tears, just, release. 7 years of swallowing my feelings. 7 years of making myself small. 7 years of giving and giving and giving until there was nothing left. It was all finally over. I sat in that car and cried for what felt like hours. And when the tears finally stopped, I pulled out my phone and called the one person I knew would understand, my brother, Liam. He picked up on the second ring. "Em, what's wrong? You sound terrible." "Just ended my marriage," I said, my voice still shaky. There was a long pause. Then Liam said the exact right thing. "Good, that guy never deserved you anyway. Where are you? I'm coming to get you." And just like that, I didn't feel so alone anymore. The next few weeks were a blur. Lawyers. Paperwork. Moving out of the apartment Michael and I had shared. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly simple, since I had been smart enough to keep my finances separate. And since the mansion was legally in my name, there wasn't much for Michael to fight over. He tried, of course, called me constantly, showed up at Liam's apartment where I was staying, left voicemails begging me to reconsider. "I love you, Emma. I've always loved you. I was caught between you and my mother, and I didn't know what to do. Please, give me another chance." But I didn't return his calls. Didn't answer the door when he came knocking. Didn't give him another chance, because I had finally realized something important. Love isn't supposed to hurt like that. Love isn't supposed to make you feel small and worthless and invisible. Love is supposed to lift you up, not tear you down. And whatever Michael and I had, it wasn't love. It was just habit. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. And that brings me to the next part of this story, the part where everything changed, the part where I finally started living for myself, the part where I met someone who showed me what real love actually looks like. But I'm getting ahead of myself. See, after the divorce, I did something crazy, something I never would have done in a million years when I was with Michael. I took a trip alone to a place I had always dreamed of visiting. And that's where everything truly began. 3 weeks after my divorce was finalized, I was sitting on a plane headed to California. San Diego. To be exact, I had always wanted to see the Pacific Ocean. Growing up in Boston, I knew the Atlantic like the back of my hand. Cold, gray, rough around the edges, beautiful in its own way. But harsh. Kind of like my life had been now that I think about it. But the Pacific, everyone always talked about how different it was, warmer, calmer. This endless stretch of blue that could make you forget all your problems. I needed to forget my problems. I needed to breathe. I needed to figure out who Emma Richardson was when she wasn't trying to be someone else's perfect wife. Liam had been worried about me traveling alone. You sure about this, Em? He had asked, watching me pack my suitcase. I could come with you. Take some time off work. I need to do this by myself, I told him. I've spent the last 7 years defining myself through Michael and Patricia and their expectations. I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to find out. He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. Just promise me you'll call every day. Every day, I promised, and I meant it. So there I was, 31 years old, newly divorced, sitting in a window seat watching the clouds drift by below me for the first time in years. I didn't have anywhere. I needed to be. No shifts at the hospital, no family obligations, no mother-in-law to impress, just me and the open sky and a week in a city I had never been to. It was terrifying and exhilarating and exactly what I needed. I landed in San Diego around noon. The weather was perfect. 72 degrees, not a cloud in sight. This gentle breeze that smelled like salt and sunshine. I picked up my rental car, a little red convertible that made me feel like I was in a movie, and drove straight to the beach. I didn't even go to my hotel first. I just needed to see the ocean. And when I finally did, when I pulled into that parking lot and walked across the warm sand and stood at the edge of the water, I cried, not because I was sad, because I was overwhelmed. The Pacific was everything people said it was and more. This impossibly blue expanse stretching out to the horizon. Waves rolling in soft and gentle, like they were trying to comfort me. The sun warmed on my face, melting away all the cold I had been carrying inside for so long. I stood there for almost an hour, just breathing, just existing, just being Emma. It felt like the first time I had been truly present in years. Then, rest of that first day was spent wandering. I explored the boardwalk, ate fish tacos from a little stand that had a line around the block, watched surfers catching waves and kids building sandcastles and couples, walking hand in hand. Everyone seemed so happy, so free. I wanted to feel like that. I was starting to think maybe I could. On my second day in San Diego, I decided to visit this little coffee shop I had read about online. It was called The Morning Tide, and apparently they had the best lattes in the city. I needed a good latte. The shop was adorable. Exposed brick walls, mismatched vintage furniture, local artwork hanging everywhere, the kind of place that felt lived in and loved. I ordered my coffee and found a cozy spot by the window. Pulling out the journal I had brought with me, I had started writing again, something I used to do all the time before Michael, before I lost myself in trying to be what everyone else wanted me to be. I was so focused on my journal that I didn't notice someone approaching my table. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up, and my heart did this weird little flutter thing that hadn't felt in years. The man standing in front of me was tall, not intimidatingly tall, just comfortably tall, sandy brown hair that was slightly messy, like he had just come from the beach. These warm hazel eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and he was smiling now. This open, friendly smile that made me feel instantly at ease. No, I stammered, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. "Go ahead." "Thanks," he said, settling into the seat. I'm James, by the way. I come here pretty much every morning and I've never seen you before. You visiting? Is it that obvious? I asked, a little embarrassed. Only because you're actually looking at the ocean. He laughed, nodding toward the window. Locals stop noticing it after a while. Takes a tourist to remind us how beautiful it really is. I smiled at that. It was a nice thought. I'm Emma, I said. And yeah, I'm just here for a week. Needed to get away from everything, I guess. Everything, huh? He raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a story. A long one, I admitted. Well, he said, leaning back in his chair, I've got time if you've got the words. I know I don't know why. But something about this stranger made me want to talk. Maybe it was the fact that he didn't know anything about me. No preconceptions, no history. Just a blank slate. So, I told him not everything, but enough about my marriage, about Michael and Patricia, about the mansion and the text and the divorce, about feeling lost and trying to find myself. Again, James listened without interrupting. His eyes never left my face. And when I finally finished, he let out a low whistle. Wow, he said. That's a lot. Sorry, I said, suddenly embarrassed. I don't know why I just dumped all of that on you. We literally just met. 'Kay? No, don't apologize, he said quickly. I asked. And honestly, I'm glad you told me. It sounds like you needed to say it out loud to someone who isn't connected to any of it. He was right. I did need that. Can I tell you something? James asked. Sure. I think you're incredibly brave. Ha! Laughed, surprised. Brave. I literally ran away to California to escape my problems. That's not running away, he said seriously. That's choosing yourself. After 7 years of putting everyone else first, you finally decided that you matter. That takes guts, Emma. A lot of people never get there. I felt tears prick at my eyes, but I blinked them back. Thank you, I said quietly. I think I really needed to hear that. We talked for 3 more hours about everything and nothing. His job as a Marine, biologist at the local aquarium, my work as a nurse, and how much I actually loved it. Our favorite books, movies, foods, our dreams for the future. It was easy, incredibly easy, like talking to someone I had known my whole life. When the coffee shop started closing up for a midday break, James walked me out. So, he said, hands in his pockets, looking almost nervous. I know this is probably way too forward, but would you want to grab dinner with me tonight? I know this great little seafood place on the pier. I hesitated. 3 weeks ago, I had been married. Was I ready for this? Was it too soon? But then I thought about what James had said about choosing myself, about being brave. And I realized that being brave didn't mean waiting until everything was perfect. It meant taking chances even when things were messy. I'd love that. I said his smile could have lit up the entire San Diego coastline. That dinner was the first of many. Every day for the rest of my trip, James and I found excuses to be together. He took me to the aquarium where he worked, introduced me to the sea otters. We watched the sunset from the pier, eating ice cream and talking until the stars came out. He showed me his favorite hidden beach, this secluded little cove that tourists never found. We talked and laughed and shared things I had never shared with anyone. And not once did he make me feel like I wasn't enough. Not once did he dismiss my feelings or tell me I was being too sensitive. Not once did he choose anyone else over me. He was just present, kind, real, on. My last night in San Diego, we sat on the beach together, watching the waves roll in under the moonlight. I don't want to go back to Boston, I admitted quietly. Then don't, James said simply. I turned to look at him.
What?
Don't go back, he repeated. I mean, obviously, you have things to take care of there. But after that, you could come back here, start fresh, build a new life, just like that. Why not? He shrugged. You said yourself that you don't know who Emma is anymore. Maybe Emma is someone who lives by the ocean, Someone who eats fish tacos every week and watches sunsets and wakes up happy. I wanted that God. I wanted that so badly. But we barely know each other, I said, trying to be practical. It's only been a week. I know, James said. And I'm not saying you should move here for me. I'm saying you should move here for you, because I've watched you this whole week. Emma, I've seen the way your whole face lights up when you're near the water. I've heard you laugh, really laugh, like you haven't laughed in years. This place is good for you. Anyone can see that. He reached over and took my hand. But I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't love it if you came back. Because this week has been pretty incredible. I looked at him, dotted. This man I had known for only 7 days, dotted his kind. Eyes in his warm smile and his hand wrapped around mine, and I made a decision. Not about him, about me. I need to go back to Boston. First, I said, there are things I need to handle. The mansion, my job, my apartment. I can't just disappear. Of course, he nodded. But after that, I took a deep breath. After that, I think I want to come back. Not because of you, even though you're pretty great, but because you're right. I feel different here. I feel like myself. James smiled that beautiful smile. Then I'll be here, he said. Whenever you're ready, however long it takes, I'll be right here. He leaned in and kissed me, soft and gentle, like the Pacific waves, and something inside me that had been broken for a very long time started to heal. I flew back to Boston the next morning, but I was a different person than the one who had left. I was Emma Richardson, not Michael's wife, not Patricia's disappointment. Just Emma, and I had plans, big plans. The first thing I did when I got back was deal with the mansion. I met with my lawyer, a wonderful woman named Olivia who had been handling everything since the divorce. So, what do you want to do with the property? She asked. I had thought about this a lot. Part of me wanted to sell it. Just be done with the whole thing. But another part of me had a different idea. I want to turn it into a shelter, I said. Olivia raised her eyebrows. A shelter for women leaving difficult situations, I explained. Domestic abuse, toxic relationships, whatever. A place where they can stay while they get back on their feet. A place where they can feel safe. Olivia was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. Emma, that's beautiful. It's what my grandmother would have wanted, I said. She always believed in helping people, in giving others the chances she never had. I want her money to do some real good in the world, not sit in some empty mansion collecting dust. So that's what we did. The process took months. But eventually the Clark Mansion, as Patricia had so proudly called it, became the Rose House, named after my grandmother, a sanctuary for women who needed a second chance. Patricia was furious. Of course, she threatened to sue, to go to the media, to make my life miserable, but she had no legal ground to stand on. The house was mine, and I could do whatever I wanted with it. The last I heard, she had moved into a small apartment on the other side of Boston. Michael had tried to help her, but his salary could only do so much. I didn't feel sorry for them. I didn't feel anything for them at all. They were part of my past now, and I was focused on my future. 6 months after my trip to San Diego, I quit my job in Boston, said goodbye to Liam, who promised to visit every holiday, packed up my entire life into a moving truck, and drove across the country to start. James was waiting for me when I arrived, standing outside this cute little beach cottage he had helped me find online, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite, with that same smile that had made my heart flutter in the coffee shop all those months ago. Welcome home, Emma, he said, and it was Dot. It really, truly was. Every morning, I would wake up to the sound of waves, not car horns or city traffic or the constant noise of a life that never felt like mine. Just waves, soft and steady and peaceful. I would make my coffee, walk out onto the little deck of my beach cottage, and just exist. No pressure, no expectations, no one telling me I wasn't enough, Just me and the ocean and the warm California sun. It was heaven. James and I took things slow, really slow. After everything I had been through with Michael, I needed time to figure out who I was. Before I could fully give myself to someone else, and James understood that he never pushed. Never. Pressured. Never made me feel guilty for needing space. He was just there. Steady and patient and kind. Like the ocean itself. We would have dinner together, a few times a week. Long walks on the beach where we talked about everything and nothing. Lazy. Sunday mornings at the Morning Tide. The coffee shop where we first met. He introduced me to his friends. This wonderful group of marine biologists and surfers and artists who welcomed me like I had always been part of their crew. For the first time in my life, I had a community. People who liked me for me, not for what I could give them or do for them, just for who I was. It was incredible. I got a job at a local hospital. Working in the pediatric ward, I had always loved working with kids back in Boston. But there was never time. Michael always wanted me home for dinner, Patricia. Always needed something. My own dreams kept getting pushed to the back burner. But now I could finally do what I loved every day. I got to help sick children feel a little bit better. Read them stories. Make them laugh. Hold their hands when they were scared. It was exhausting and heartbreaking and absolutely wonderful. I had never felt more fulfilled. About 8 months after I moved to San Diego, I got a phone call from Boston. It was from a woman named Sophia, the director I had hired to run Rose House. "I have to tell you something," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We just helped our 100th resident. 100 women, Emma. 100 women who have a safe place because of what you created." I had to sit down. 100 women. 100 lives changed. 100 second chances. "Tell me about them," I whispered. And Sophia did. She told me about Sarah, a young mother who had escaped an abusive marriage and was now finishing her nursing degree. About Maria, a grandmother who had lost everything and was now working as a chef at a local restaurant. About dozens of other women who had walked through those mansion doors broken and walked out whole. My grandmother's money was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Helping people, giving hope, creating new beginnings. I cried for an hour after that phone call, but they were happy tears. The happiest I had ever cried. A few weeks later, James took me to our hidden beach, the secluded little cove he had shown me during my first trip to San Diego. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. The waves were gentle, lapping at the shore like a lullaby. It was perfect. "Emma," James said, turning to face me, "I need to tell you something." My heart skipped a beat. "K. This past year with you has been the best year of my life," he said, his hazel eyes soft in the fading light. "Watching you heal, watching you grow, watching you become this incredible, confident, beautiful woman. It's been an honor. And I know we said we were taking things slow. I know you needed time. But I need you to know something." He took both of my hands in his. "I love you, Emma. Not the version of you that tries to make everyone else happy. Not the version that shrinks herself to fit into someone else's expectations. I love you. The real you. The one who laughs too loud and cries at commercials and eats way too many fish tacos." I laughed through the tears that were already forming. "I love your strength," he continued. "The way you turned your pain into something beautiful with Rose House. The way you light up when you talk about your patients. The way you see the good in everyone, even when they don't deserve it." He reached into his pocket, and my heart stopped. "I'm not asking you to marry me right now," he said quickly, holding up a small velvet box. "I know it's too soon for that. But I want you to know that whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm going to be right here. This ring belonged to my grandmother. She and my grandfather were married for 52 years, and she always told me to give it to someone who makes me feel like I can conquer the World, he opened the box. Inside was the most beautiful ring I had ever seen. Simple and elegant. A single diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires. Just like my old ring, but somehow completely different. You make me feel like I can conquer the world. Emma, James said softly. So I'm giving you this ring, not as an engagement ring, just as a promise. A promise that I will spend every single day making sure you know how loved and valued and cherished you are. However long it takes, however slow you need to go. I'm not going anywhere. I was crying so hard I could barely see, but I didn't need to see. I could feel the warmth of his hands holding mine. Feel the love radiating off him like sunshine. Feel, for the first time in my entire life, completely and utterly safe. James, I managed to choke out. I don't need more time. His eyes went wide. What? I don't need more time, I repeated, laughing through my tears. I've spent my whole life waiting to be good enough, waiting for people to love me, waiting for permission to be happy. I don't want to wait anymore. I reached out and touched his face. I love you too. I love you so much, it scares me. And if you're asking me to marry you, the answer is yes. 1,000 times, yes. James stared at me for a long moment. Then his face broke into the biggest smile I had ever seen. Really? He breathed. Really? I confirmed. He let out this whoop of joy that echoed across the empty beach. Then he picked me up and spun me around, both of us laughing like crazy people. When he finally set me down, he slipped his grandmother's ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, like it was always meant to be there. I can't believe this is happening, he said, still grinning. Believe it, I smiled. You're stuck with me now. Best thing that ever happened to me, he said, and then he kissed me under the setting sun. On our secret beach. With the Pacific Ocean as our witness. It was the most perfect moment of my entire life. We got married 6 months later. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family on the beach at sunset. Liam flew out from Boston to walk me down the aisle. He cried harder than I did. Grandma Rose would be so proud of you, he whispered as he handed me off to James. You found your happy ending. Em and I had. I really had. The ceremony was simple and beautiful. We wrote our own vows. James promised to always make me laugh. Even when I was being stubborn, I promised to always steal his fries. Because that's what true love looks like. Everyone laughed, everyone cried, and when the officiant pronounced as husband and wife, the small crowd of people we loved most in the world erupted in cheers. The reception was at the Morning Tide. The coffee shop where we first met. The owner had closed it down for the night. Just for us, we danced under string lights, ate way too much cake. Told embarrassing stories about each other to anyone who would listen. It was perfect. Not perfect in the polished, impressive way that Patricia would have approved of. Perfect in the messy, joyful, overflowing with love way that actually matters. 2 years later, I was standing in the nursery of our little beach cottage. The walls were painted a soft seafoam green. Little stuffed sea creatures lined the shelves, and in my arms was the most beautiful baby boy I had ever seen. We named him Oliver. Oliver Rose Martinez, after my grandmother and the new life she had made possible. He had James's hazel eyes and my stubborn chin. And when he smiled, which was often, I could see both of us in his tiny face. Hey there, little man, I whispered, rocking him gently. You have no idea how loved you are. Your daddy and I waited a long time for you. And now that you're here, our family is complete. James appeared in the doorway, watching us with that soft smile I loved so much. How are my 2 favorite people? He asked quietly. Perfect, I said. Absolutely perfect. He walked over and wrapped his arms around both of us. Our little family, standing in our little cottage with the sound of waves outside our window. I thought about everything that had led to this moment, the 7 years of feeling invisible in my marriage. The text that shattered my world the night I walked into that mansion and took back my power. The divorce, the plane ride too. California. The coffee shop. James. All of it. Every painful, confusing, heartbreaking moment, it had all been leading here to this room, to this family, to this family, to this life. And you know what? I wouldn't change a single thing, because all of that pain taught me something important. It taught me that I am enough, that I was always enough, that the people who made me feel otherwise were the ones with the problem, not me. It taught me that walking away from something toxic isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. It's being brave. It taught me that happy endings aren't just for fairy tales. They're for anyone willing to fight for them, anyone willing to close one chapter so a better one can begin. Sometimes I still think about Michael and Patricia, not with anger anymore, just with a kind of distant curiosity I heard through mutual friends that Michael remarried some woman from his office. I hope she has a thicker skin than I did. I hope she stands up for herself. I hope she knows her worth. As for Patricia, last I heard, she was still in that small apartment. Still bitter, still blaming everyone else for her problems. But that's not my concern anymore. She made her choices, and I made mine. Rose House is thriving now. We've helped over 500 women in the past 3 years, 500 new beginnings, 500 second chances, 500 proof that my grandmother's legacy lives on. I fly back to Boston once a year to visit. To walk through those mansions, doors that used to fill me with anxiety, to see the women whose lives have been changed within those walls, to remind myself of how far I've come. Every time I'm there, I feel Grandma Rose with me. Her strength, her kindness, her unwavering belief that everyone deserves a chance to start over. You did good, Emma. I can almost hear her say. You did real good. And I smile, because I did. I really did. Last month, Oliver took his first steps, right there on the beach at sunset, with James and me cheering him on like he had just won an Olympic medal. He toddled across the sand, fell down, got back up, and kept going, just like his mama taught him, just like life taught me. You fall down, you get back up, you keep going, and eventually, you find your way home. That night, after Oliver was asleep, James and I sat on our deck watching the stars. Hey, he said, reaching for my hand. Happy? I thought about it, really thought about it, about the scared, broken woman who had walked into a coffee shop 3 years ago, about the journey she had taken to get here, about all the love and joy and peace that now filled her life. Yeah, I said, squeezing his hand. I really am. He smiled. Good, because I'm pretty happy too. We sat there in comfortable silence, listening to the waves, and I realized something. That text Michael sent me 3 years ago. The one that said his mother didn't want me at her party. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it set me free. Free to find myself, free to find James, free to build a life that was truly, completely, wonderfully mine. So if you're out there right now, feeling like you're not enough, feeling invisible, feeling trapped in a situation that's slowly crushing your soul, I want you to know something. You are enough. You have always been enough. And it's never too late to choose yourself. To walk away from the people who don't see your value, to start over, even when it's terrifying. To find your own beach, cottage by the ocean. Your own sunrise, your own happy ending. It's out there waiting for you. I promise. You just have to be brave enough to go find it. As for me, I'm sitting on my deck right now, watching the Pacific Ocean shimmer under the morning sun. My husband is making breakfast in the kitchen. My son is babbling happily in his high chair, and I am smiling. Really, truly, from the bottom, my heart smiling. Because I finally found what I was always looking for. Not a perfect, Marriage, not approval from people who were never going to give it. Not a mansion or fancy things or any of that stuff. I found myself, I've found my people, I've found home, and they lived happily ever after. With big smiles, lots of laughter, and the sound of waves outside their window. The end.